The man in the worn jacket. The sun had just begun its descent behind the towering skyline of Los Angeles, casting a golden glow over the bustling city streets. People hurried past each other, immersed in their own worlds, some lost in thought, others glued to their phones, and a few engaged in lively conversations. Among the sea of faces was a man in a simple, worn leather jacket, walking at a steady, unhurried pace. Keanu Reeves had always been a man of simple tastes. Despite his fame and wealth, he preferred the comfort of old clothes, a motorcycle over a limousine, and moments of quiet solitude over the glitz of Hollywood's endless parties. On this particular day, he was out looking at real estate, not for himself, but for a charity project he had been working on. He had long dreamed of creating a safe space for struggling artists, a haven where young actors, musicians, and writers could focus on their craft without worrying about rent or food. After weeks of research, Keanu had found a property that seemed promising, a historic building in an artsy neighborhood, perfect for his vision. The real estate agency handling the property was known for dealing with high-profile clients, so Keanu had decided to visit the office in person. He wanted to get a feel for the place, speak with the agent directly, and finalize the deal. As he stepped into the glass-walled office, he was met with the crisp scent of fresh coffee and the faint hum of phone conversations. A woman at the reception desk barely glanced up as he approached. "Good afternoon," Keanu greeted politely. "I have an appointment to see Ms. Lorraine Daniels about a property listing." The receptionist, a young woman with perfectly manicured nails, looked up from her computer, eyes flicking over him briefly. She arched a brow, clearly unimpressed by his unassuming appearance. "Name?" she asked, her tone cool and detached. "Keanu," he replied simply. Her fingers tapped against the keyboard before she glanced back up. "Mr. Reeves?" she asked, voice tinged with surprise. Keanu smiled and nodded. Her eyes widened, and for a second, her professional mask faltered. But then, just as quickly, she regained composure. "Right. Have a seat. I'll let Ms. Daniels know you're here." Keanu took a seat in the waiting area, watching the busy office. It was sleek, modern, and bustling with sharply dressed professionals, each engaged in their own high-stakes transactions. Minutes later, a woman in an elegant navy blue suit strutted toward him. She was tall, with an air of confidence that bordered on arrogance. Her expensive heels clicked sharply against the marble floor as she approached. "Mr. Reeves?" she asked, her voice carrying the clipped efficiency of someone who had no time to waste. Keanu stood, offering his hand. "Yes. Lorraine Daniels." She barely glanced at his outstretched hand before folding her arms. "Yes. Come with me." Her dismissive tone was hard to miss, but Keanu ignored it, following her into a sleek, glass-walled office. She gestured for him to sit but didn't bother to offer a drink or any pleasantries. Instead, she pulled out a thick folder and flipped through the documents with an air of impatience. "So," she began, not looking up, "you're interested in the historic property on Madison Street?" "That's right," Keanu confirmed. "I'd like to discuss purchasing it and repurposing it into a creative space for young artists." Lorraine finally looked up, her sharp brown eyes assessing him. She tapped a perfectly manicured nail against the folder. "Mr. Reeves," she began, her tone slow and deliberate, "this property is exclusive. We handle high-profile clients, and this is not exactly the kind of purchase we entertain lightly." Keanu tilted his head, sensing the subtle condescension in her voice. "I understand. That's why I'm here, to discuss the details and move forward." Lorraine let out a small, humorless laugh. "Look, Mr. Reeves, I'm not sure this is a good fit for you. This isn't some charity project location. It's prime real estate. We usually work with serious investors and developers, people with experience in the market." Keanu's expression remained calm, but inside, he felt a pang of irritation. He had dealt with people like Lorraine before, those who judged others based on appearances, those who assumed money and success had a particular look. "Are you implying that I'm not a serious buyer?" he asked, his voice even. Lorraine sighed dramatically, as if she had to spell things out. "Mr. Reeves, you showed up alone, no advisors, no legal team, and frankly, no offense, but you don't exactly look like someone in the market for a multimillion-dollar property. This is a competitive space, and we can't waste time on inquiries that won't lead anywhere." Keanu leaned back in his chair, studying her. "So, because I didn't walk in here with a suit and an entourage, you assume I can't afford it?" Lorraine smiled, the kind of smile that wasn't friendly. "It's not personal. It's business." For the first time, Keanu felt a flicker of amusement, if only she knew. Still, he decided to give her one last chance. "Ms. Daniels, I can assure you, I am fully capable of purchasing this property outright. I don't need investors or developers. I just need an honest conversation about the sale." Lorraine closed the folder with a decisive thud. "I'm sorry, Mr. Reeves, but I really don't think this is the right fit. Perhaps something more manageable would be better suited for your needs." It was a clear dismissal. Keanu could see it in her eyes. She had already decided he wasn't worth her time. A slow smile spread across his face, though there was no joy in it. He rose from his chair, adjusting his jacket. "I appreciate your time, Ms. Daniels," he said smoothly, "but I think I'll take my business elsewhere." Lorraine barely suppressed an eye roll. "Of course. Best of luck." As Keanu turned to leave, he couldn't help but wonder how she would react when she realized what she had just done. Because by the end of the next day, Lorraine Daniels would learn a lesson she would never forget. A lesson in humility. Lorraine Daniels barely spared a second thought as Keanu Reeves walked out of her office. In her world, first impressions mattered, and his had been unimpressive at best. She was accustomed to dealing with high-profile clients, billionaires, luxury developers, and corporate executives who exuded wealth and power the moment they stepped into the room. Keanu, in his worn leather jacket and casual demeanor, had not fit the mold. She leaned back in her chair, exhaling sharply. "Another time-waster," she muttered under her breath. With a flick of her wrist, she reached for her phone and tapped on her assistant's contact. "Jessica, make sure to remove that appointment slot from my schedule. We won't be entertaining that buyer again." Jessica hesitated on the other end. Are you sure, Ms. Daniels? I mean, he was Keanu Reeves." "You know, the Keanu Reeves." Lorraine rolled her eyes. "I don't care if he's Keanu Reeves or Keanu nobody. Did you see him? No team, no representative, no paperwork. Probably looking for a discount charity deal. We don't waste time with those types. Just clear my schedule." "Understood," Jessica replied, though there was a small hint of uncertainty in her voice. Lorraine ended the call and returned her attention to the rest of the day's tasks. Just another client who wasn't worth her time. The surprise meeting. The next morning, Lorraine arrived at the office sharp at 8:00 a.m., as she did every day. Her assistant was already at her desk, looking unusually flustered. "Good morning, Jessica," Lorraine greeted as she walked past. Jessica looked up hesitantly. Ms. Daniels, I think you should check the news." Lorraine raised an eyebrow. "Why? What happened?" Jessica bit her lip, then turned her computer screen toward Lorraine. The moment Lorraine's eyes landed on the screen, her breath caught. The headline read, "Hollywood icon Keanu Reeves makes multi-million-dollar property purchase, in cash." Her pulse quickened as she skimmed the article. Beloved actor and philanthropist Keanu Reeves has once again stunned fans with his generosity. The John Wick star quietly finalized the purchase of a historic building in Los Angeles yesterday, with plans to turn it into a creative hub for struggling artists. The purchase was made through a private deal, with Reeves personally handling negotiations. While some sources say he originally approached a well-known luxury real estate firm, he ultimately chose to work with an independent broker after a disappointing experience. Lorraine's hands clenched. She barely noticed Jessica watching her nervously. "Isn't that the same property he wanted to buy from us?" Jessica asked carefully. Lorraine didn't answer. Her face had gone pale as she scrolled down the article. There it was, a picture of Keanu Reeves standing with a different real estate broker, a woman from a smaller, lesser-known agency. She was all smiles as she shook hands with him, clearly thrilled with the deal. Another pang hit Lorraine as she read the final part of the article. When asked why he bypassed major firms, Reeves simply smiled and said, "Some people judge you before they even hear you out. I prefer working with those who treat people with kindness, no matter what they look like." Lorraine's stomach twisted into a knot. She had turned him away. She had dismissed him without even listening. And now, another agent, one she barely considered competition, had landed what could have been her biggest sale of the quarter. A painful realization. Jessica cleared her throat, bringing Lorraine back to reality. "Ms. Daniels, should I send a message to Mr. Reeves? Maybe apologize?" Lorraine inhaled deeply, forcing herself to maintain composure. "No," she said after a long pause. "It's too late for that." She turned sharply, walking into her office and shutting the door behind her. For the first time in a long time, Lorraine felt defeated. She prided herself on being one of the best in the business, but the truth was glaring at her now. Her arrogance had cost her big time. She had made assumptions about a man who had more wealth and influence than most of her clients combined. But more than that, she had failed to see who he truly was. It wasn't just about the money. It was about character. And Keanu Reeves had more of it than she ever did. An unexpected visit. Later that afternoon, just as she was about to leave for an important lunch meeting, Jessica rushed into her office, her face pink with nervous energy. "Ms. Daniels, you have a visitor," she said quickly. Lorraine frowned. "I don't have any appointments right now." Jessica swallowed hard. It's him." Lorraine's heart stopped. "Him who?" Jessica just pointed toward the waiting area. Taking a deep breath, Lorraine walked out of her office, smoothing her blouse as she approached the seating area. And there he was. Keanu Reeves sat on one of the sleek white chairs, dressed just as casually as before, his leather jacket slung over the armrest. He looked up at her, his dark eyes calm yet unreadable. For the first time in years, Lorraine felt genuine nerves. "Mr. Reeves," she greeted, keeping her tone professional. "This is unexpected." Keanu stood, offering her the same handshake she had ignored yesterday. This time, she took it. "I just came by to say no hard feelings," he said simply. Lorraine blinked, taken aback. "Excuse me." Keanu smiled, and to her shock, there was no malice in it. "I get it. You thought I wasn't serious. It happens." Lorraine's throat felt tight. She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I misjudged you." Keanu nodded, his expression kind but firm. "Yeah, you did." She exhaled slowly. "That was a huge mistake on my part." Keanu chuckled lightly. It was. A tense silence followed before Lorraine finally let her pride slip. "I should have treated you better," she admitted, her voice softer now. "Not because of who you are, but because everyone deserves to be treated with respect." Keanu gave her an approving nod. "That's all I wanted to hear." Lorraine studied him, realizing how easy it would have been for him to gloat, to rub his success in her face. But he wasn't here for that. He was here to teach her a lesson without even trying. "You're a better person than I am, Mr. Reeves," she murmured. Keanu smiled, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "Nah, I just know what it's like to be underestimated." With that, he gave her a small nod and turned to leave. Lorraine watched him go, a strange mix of regret and admiration swirling inside her. For the first time in years, she had learned a lesson in humility. And she knew she would never make the same mistake again. Redemption and realization. A sleepless night. For the first time in years, Lorraine Daniels found herself unable to sleep. She tossed and turned, staring at the ceiling as the events of the previous day played on a loop in her mind. Keanu Reeves had walked into her office, interested in purchasing a prime real estate property. She had dismissed him, assumed he wasn't worth her time, and now she had lost the biggest sale of her career. More than that, she had lost an opportunity to prove that she was a professional who treated everyone fairly. Keanu could have gloated, rubbed his success in her face. But instead, he had come back to show her that he harbored no resentment. How many people would do that? Lorraine sighed, sitting up in bed. Her phone screen illuminated her dark bedroom, casting a pale blue glow. She instinctively opened her email, scrolling through client messages, trying to distract herself. But her mind kept circling back to one thing. Keanu had given her a second chance, not in business, but in character. And she wasn't going to waste it. A new mission. The next morning, Lorraine arrived at the office before sunrise, something she hadn't done in years. The city skyline was still bathed in the soft hues of dawn, a stark contrast to her usual rushed mornings, filled with coffee and emails. Jessica, her assistant, arrived not long after, nearly dropping her purse when she saw Lorraine already at her desk. "Ms. Daniels, you're here early." Lorraine smiled, something that surprised even herself. "Yes, Jessica. And I have work to do." Jessica hesitated before setting down her things. "Anything I can help with?" Lorraine looked at her assistant, really looked at her, for the first time in a long while. Jessica had been working under her for nearly 2 years, always polite, always efficient. Lorraine had never once asked about her aspirations or goals. She had spent years judging people on their outward appearances, but she had never once seen them. "Actually, yes," Lorraine said. "Tell me something, Jessica. What's your dream?" Jessica blinked, clearly caught off guard. "My dream." Lorraine nodded. "You work hard. You're great at what you do. But is this what you want to do?" Jessica hesitated before answering. "Well, I'd always wanted to get into real estate myself. I mean, I do all the paperwork. I know how the system works. But I've never had the chance to actually sell anything." Lorraine leaned back in her chair, feeling the weight of her past choices. "That changes today." Jessica's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" Lorraine exhaled deeply. "I've spent my entire career chasing high-profile clients, believing that money and power are the only things that matter. But yesterday I was reminded that people matter. And I think it's time I start giving opportunities instead of shutting doors." Jessica watched her cautiously. "So, what are you saying?" "I'm saying," Lorraine said with a small smile, "that your real estate career starts now." Jessica's mouth fell open. "Wait, what? You're serious?" Lorraine nodded. "You've got the skills, the drive. I'll mentor you personally, and your first client." Jessica gulped. "Who?" Lorraine's gaze softened. "Keanu Reeves." Jessica nearly fell off her chair. A call that changed everything. Later that day, Lorraine found herself staring at Keanu Reeves' contact number. It had been sent over in an email after his visit, but she hadn't dared to use it. Until now. She took a deep breath and dialed. The phone rang once, twice. Then connected. "Hello." Keanu's familiar voice came through, calm and collected. Lorraine cleared her throat. "Mr. Reeves, it's Lorraine Daniels." A pause. Then, "Ms. Daniels, wasn't expecting your call." Lorraine forced a small chuckle. "I suppose I deserve that. Listen, I wanted to apologize again. Not just for how I treated you, but for how I've been running my business." Keanu didn't speak right away, letting her continue. "I made a mistake, a big one. And I'd like to make it right," Lorraine said. "I know you've already bought the property, and I respect that. But if there's anything else I can do for your project, I'd like to offer my services, free of charge." Another pause. Then, "Free of charge." Lorraine nodded, even though he couldn't see her. "Yes, I want to help. And I have someone I'd like you to meet. My assistant, Jessica. She's talented, driven, and she deserves a shot in this business. I'd like her to handle any future real estate needs you might have." There was a long silence on the other end, and Lorraine braced herself for rejection. Then, to her surprise, Keanu chuckled. "You know, Ms. Daniels, I wasn't sure if you were capable of change." Lorraine smiled, feeling lighter than she had in years. "Neither was I." Keanu exhaled thoughtfully. "All right, let's meet. I'll bring my project manager. We'll talk." Lorraine nearly sagged in relief. "Thank you, Mr. Reeves. I appreciate it." Keanu's voice was warm. "Call me Keanu. And hey, everyone deserves a second chance." Lorraine hung up, a genuine smile spreading across her face. For the first time in years, she felt like she was finally on the right path. And it had all started with one simple lesson. Kindness and humility mattered more than money. Rebuilding bridges. A fresh start. Lorraine Daniels stood outside the cafe, adjusting the cuffs of her blazer. The morning sun bathed the streets of Los Angeles in a golden hue, casting long shadows across the sidewalk. She had chosen a small, quiet cafe for this meeting, not one of the high-end luxury establishments she usually frequented, but a place that felt real. Today's meeting wasn't about business. It was about redemption. She had invited Keanu Reeves and his project manager to discuss how she could contribute to his vision. But more than that, she had also brought along Jessica, her assistant, whom she had finally recognized as more than just someone who scheduled appointments and sent emails. This was Jessica's first big opportunity in real estate, and Lorraine had no intention of overshadowing her. "Are you nervous?" Lorraine asked, glancing at Jessica. Jessica exhaled slowly. "A little. I never expected my first client meeting to be with Keanu Reeves." Lorraine smirked. "Welcome to the industry. Sometimes, the most unexpected moments are the ones that shape your career." Jessica nodded, gripping the leather-bound portfolio in her hands. "Do you think he'll trust me?" Lorraine hesitated before answering. "Keanu doesn't care about titles or status. He cares about character. Show him your dedication, and he'll give you a fair shot." Before Jessica could respond, the door to the cafe swung open, and in walked Keanu Reeves. The meeting that changed everything. Keanu's entrance was unassuming, as always. Dressed in a black t-shirt and jeans, his presence was effortless. No bodyguards, no entourage, just him. Behind him was another man, slightly shorter, dressed in business casual. Mason Hart, Keanu's project manager and real estate consultant. "Ms. Daniels," Keanu greeted with a warm nod before glancing at Jessica. "And you must be the rising star." Jessica nearly dropped her portfolio. "Oh, yes, thank you, Mr. Reeves, Keanu." Keanu chuckled as he took a seat. "Relax. We're just here to talk." Lorraine took a deep breath, reminding herself that today wasn't about her. She gestured toward Jessica. "She's been my right hand for years. She knows the market inside and out, and I trust her judgment completely." Jessica swallowed hard before speaking. "Mr. Reeves, I know this is unconventional, but I'd love the chance to work with you. I believe in what you're doing with this property. Giving artists a space to create without financial burden is inspiring, and I want to be part of that journey." Mason, the project manager, studied her for a moment before turning to Keanu. "She's passionate. I like that." Keanu nodded, looking at Jessica thoughtfully. "All right. I have a new project coming up. Another historic property that could use some work. How about you help me find a team for that?" Jessica's eyes widened. "Wait, are you serious?" Keanu smirked. "I don't joke about business. If you're up for the challenge, I'll give you the first shot." Jessica was speechless. Lorraine, for the first time in years, felt a genuine sense of pride, not just in her assistant, but in herself. She had almost lost the chance to be part of something meaningful. But now, she was rebuilding the bridges she had once burned. An unexpected twist. Just as the meeting was wrapping up, Mason pulled out a file from his briefcase and slid it across the table. "This is something Keanu wanted to discuss with you, Ms. Daniels," he said. Lorraine frowned as she picked up the file. As she flipped through the documents, her breath caught. It was a business proposal, not just for Keanu's current project, but for a long-term partnership. You want me to be involved?" she asked, unable to hide her shock. Keanu leaned back in his chair, studying her. "I believe in second chances, Lorraine. You misjudged me once, but you owned up to it, and that says a lot. Most people wouldn't bother trying to make things right." Lorraine blinked rapidly, unable to process what was happening. "I don't hold grudges," Keanu continued, "and I think you could be an asset. I'm not just looking for a real estate agent. I'm looking for someone who understands the value of people. And I think you're starting to." Lorraine swallowed the lump in her throat. For the first time in a long time, she felt seen. And in that moment, she knew this was her chance to truly change. The power of second chances, a decision that could change everything. Lorraine Daniels sat in her office, staring at the proposal Keanu Reeves had given her. It had been over 24 hours, and she still couldn't fully process what had happened at the cafe. This wasn't just any business opportunity. It was a partnership with Keanu Reeves, a man whose reputation for kindness and integrity made him one of the most respected figures in the industry, not just in Hollywood, but across philanthropy, real estate, and humanitarian efforts. More than that, it was a second chance. A chance to prove that she had truly changed. A chance to break free from the toxic mindset she had built over years in cutthroat luxury real estate. A chance to be someone she could be proud of. Her fingers tightened around the papers. The old Lorraine Daniels would have immediately accepted the offer, not because she believed in the cause, but because of what it could do for her career. But now she hesitated. Not out of doubt, but out of a newfound desire to do things the right way. She needed to be sure that if she took this step, it wouldn't just be about money or status, but about truly making a difference. And there was only one person who could help her make that decision. A visit to an old friend. Lorraine found herself standing outside a modest suburban home later that evening. It was a stark contrast to the penthouses and high-rises she had been accustomed to, but it was comfortable, warm, and inviting. She knocked on the door, shifting nervously. A few moments later, the door swung open, revealing an elderly woman with silver-streaked hair and gentle brown eyes. "Well, I'll be damned," the woman said, blinking in surprise. "Lorraine Daniels, what brings you to my doorstep?" Lorraine exhaled, smiling softly. "Hi, Mom." Her mother, Martha Daniels, studied her for a long moment before stepping aside. "Come in. You must have something important on your mind if you're here." Lorraine stepped inside, immediately hit by the familiar scent of freshly brewed tea and cinnamon-scented candles. As they settled into the cozy living room, Martha handed her a cup of tea and sat across from her. "All right. Spill it. What's going on?" Lorraine hesitated, then finally spoke. "I got an offer from someone unexpected. A business partnership that could change everything for me." Martha raised an eyebrow. "And why do you look so conflicted? You've been chasing big deals since you were 25. What's different about this one?" Lorraine ran a hand through her hair. "It's not just about real estate, Mom. It's about helping people. About building something that actually matters. And I don't know if I deserve to be part of it." Martha set down her cup. "Let me guess. You screwed up, but now you've been given a second chance." Lorraine blinked. "How did you?" Martha chuckled. "Because I know my daughter. You've always been ambitious, Lorraine. But sometimes that ambition made you forget what really matters." Lorraine swallowed hard. "And what if I fail again?" Martha reached over and took her hand. "Then you pick yourself back up. That's what second chances are for, sweetheart." Lorraine inhaled deeply. Maybe she did deserve this chance. Not because of her past mistakes, but because she was finally willing to be better. The decision. The next morning, Lorraine walked into her office with purpose. Jessica, who had been sorting through files, looked up curiously. "You're here early." Lorraine smiled. "We have a partnership to accept." Jessica's eyes widened. "Wait, you're doing it?" Lorraine nodded. "Yes, and you're going to be part of it." Jessica practically squealed with excitement. "Are you serious?" Lorraine chuckled. "I wouldn't say it if I wasn't." But before they could celebrate further, Jessica's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and paled slightly. Ms. Daniels, Keanu Reeves is downstairs." Lorraine's stomach flipped. "Already?" Jessica nodded. "Should I?" Before she could finish, a knock sounded at the office door. Lorraine took a deep breath. "Let him in." Keanu's offer. Keanu Reeves stepped into the office with his signature calm demeanor. His dark eyes flickered with warmth and quiet amusement. "You didn't take long to decide." Lorraine straightened. "I've spent too much time making the wrong decisions. It's time to start making the right ones." Keanu smirked. "I like that answer." He set a folder down on the desk. "Before we finalize anything, I want to make one thing clear." Lorraine nodded. "Of course." Keanu's expression turned serious. "This project isn't about making money. It's about creating something meaningful. If you're in this just to build your brand, walk away now." Lorraine met his gaze head-on. "I would have walked away a year ago. But I'm not the same person I was then. I want to be part of this for the right reasons." Keanu studied her for a long moment, then slowly nodded. "All right then, let's do this." Jessica, who had been listening the entire time, barely contained her excitement. Lorraine reached for the folder and signed the contract. As she handed it back, Keanu grinned. "Welcome to the team, Lorraine." For the first time in a long time, Lorraine felt truly proud of the path she was on. She had fallen. She had failed. But now, she was becoming someone better. And she had Keanu Reeves, and his lesson in humility, to thank for that. Challenges of a new path. A new beginning. With uncertainty. Lorraine Daniels had spent years believing that the only way to succeed in real estate was to chase wealth, cater to the ultra-rich, and prioritize profits above all else. But now, for the first time in her career, she was stepping into unfamiliar territory, a project built on purpose rather than profit. She had just signed a contract with Keanu Reeves, committing herself to a mission she had never considered before, creating a creative sanctuary for struggling artists. And while the decision had felt right in the moment, doubt crept in as she sat at her desk later that evening, staring at the blueprint Keanu's team had given her. "This is insane," she muttered under her breath. Jessica, who had been organizing files, glanced up. "What is?" Lorraine sighed, rubbing her temples. "I've spent my career selling penthouses to CEOs and celebrities. Now I'm supposed to help design a property that, what? Gives free space to artists." Jessica frowned. "Isn't that the whole point? To do something different, something meaningful?" Lorraine exhaled. "Yeah, but do I even know how to do this? Keanu is trusting me with something important, and I don't want to mess it up." Jessica gave her a knowing look. "You're overthinking it." Lorraine scoffed. "Am I?" Jessica smirked. "Yes. You've built skyscrapers, negotiated million-dollar deals, and convinced some of the toughest clients to trust you. If anyone can do this, it's you." Lorraine paused, considering Jessica's words. Maybe she was right. Maybe this wasn't about whether or not she was capable. Maybe it was about whether she was willing to change, and she was. Keanu's first test. The next morning, Lorraine arrived at the location of the project, a historic building in the heart of Los Angeles. Once a thriving artist's loft, it had fallen into disrepair over the years. The brick exterior was weathered, the windows covered in dust, and the inside, well, it was a mess. But even through the neglect, Lorraine could see potential. Keanu was already there, dressed in his usual effortless style. Black t-shirt, jeans, and boots, talking to a group of architects and planners. He turned when he saw Lorraine. "Morning," he greeted with a nod. "Ready to get started?" Lorraine forced a confident smile. "Absolutely." Keanu smirked. "Good, because I have a challenge for you." Lorraine raised an eyebrow. "A challenge?" Keanu nodded, gesturing to the rundown building. "You're used to handling clients. But today, I want you to talk to the people this project is actually for." Lorraine hesitated. "You mean the artists?" Keanu's eyes twinkled. "Exactly. This space isn't just about real estate. It's about building a community. You can't do that from behind a desk." Lorraine glanced at the group of painters, musicians, and writers gathered near the building. She had never interacted with people like this before, not in a real, meaningful way. But if she was truly going to change, this was where it started, stepping into a different world. Taking a deep breath, Lorraine approached the group. They were a diverse mix of creatives, young musicians with guitars slung over their backs, painters with color-stained hands, poets with notebooks tucked under their arms. A woman with wild curly hair and a bright smile was the first to speak. "You must be the real estate lady." Lorraine hesitated. Yes. Lorraine Daniels. I'll be working with Keanu on this project." The woman grinned. "Well, welcome to the chaos. I'm Maya. I've been squatting in this building with a few others for months now. It used to be a hub for artists before the landlord started jacking up prices." Lorraine frowned. "You were living here?" Maya shrugged. "Had no choice. Lay isn't exactly kind to artists without trust funds." A young man with long dreadlocks chimed in. "You're not gonna turn this into some high-end gallery, right? 'Cause we don't need another place that only caters to rich collectors." Lorraine shook her head quickly. "No, that's not what this is about. Keanu's vision is to create a space for artists like you, where you can work, perform, and create without worrying about rent or eviction." A murmur of surprise rippled through the group. Maya crossed her arms. "That's different. Most people in real estate don't care about us." Lorraine swallowed hard. "I didn't either. Not until recently." The honesty of her words surprised even herself. For the next hour, Lorraine listened. She heard stories of struggle and passion, of artists working multiple jobs just to afford a space to paint, of musicians performing on sidewalks because they had nowhere else to go. And for the first time in her career, Lorraine wasn't thinking about profit margins. She was thinking about people. The test of commitment. Later that afternoon, Lorraine met Keanu on the rooftop of the building, where he was watching the city skyline. "Well?" he asked, turning to her. Lorraine exhaled. "I get it now." Keanu smirked. "Do you?" Lorraine nodded. "This isn't just about fixing up an old building. It's about giving people hope, creating a space where artists don't just survive, but thrive." Keanu's smile was genuine. "Exactly." Lorraine hesitated before speaking again. "I want to do more than just help with this project. I want to be fully invested. I want to make sure this succeeds." Keanu studied her for a long moment before nodding. "All right then. I have one more test for you." Lorraine raised an eyebrow. "Another test?" Keanu chuckled. "Relax. This one's simple. We're hosting a fundraising event, an art show featuring the artists from this project. It's happening in 2 weeks. You're in charge." Lorraine's heart stopped. I've never planned an art event before." Keanu smirked. "Then it's time to learn." Lorraine exhaled. This was it, her final test. If she could pull this off, she wouldn't just be proving herself to Keanu. She'd be proving to herself that she was capable of real, meaningful change. And she wasn't about to back down now. The final test. A night to remember. 2 weeks of chaos. Lorraine Daniels had spent years perfecting the art of selling luxury properties. She could close $1 million deal in under an hour, convince powerful clients to sign contracts without hesitation, and negotiate with ruthless developers without breaking a sweat. But planning an art show, that was a completely different challenge. With only 2 weeks to organize the event Keanu had assigned her, she quickly realized that this wasn't going to be easy. First, there was the venue, the historic building Keanu had purchased. It was still half renovated, meaning it had no proper lighting, unfinished walls, and a leaky ceiling. Then there were the artists. Passionate, yes, but also stubborn. Many of them were skeptical, unsure if a real estate agent like Lorraine could be trusted. And to top it all off, there was the funding issue. The event needed sponsors for art supplies, catering, and security. But who would invest in a project that didn't promise a financial return? For the first time in her life, Lorraine wasn't dealing with powerful clients or wealthy developers. She was dealing with real people, people who had struggled their whole lives to make something of themselves. And she had to prove that she was on their side. The unexpected support. One evening, as Lorraine sat in her office, exhausted and overwhelmed, Jessica walked in with a hopeful expression. "You're not gonna believe this," Jessica said, placing a folder on the desk. Lorraine sighed. "If it's more bad news, save it for tomorrow." Jessica grinned. "Oh, it's definitely not bad news. Keanu made some calls." Lorraine frowned. "Calls?" Jessica nodded. "Apparently, he reached out to some of his contacts in the film industry. Word got out about the event, and guess what? We now have major sponsors, people who want to fund this project." Lorraine grabbed the folder, flipping through it. Her eyes widened. Names like Christopher Nolan, Sandra Bullock, and even Leonardo DiCaprio were listed as donors. Some had contributed money, while others had offered resources, professional lighting, sound systems, and even media coverage. Lorraine's heart raced. This changes everything," she whispered. Jessica smirked. "Yeah, turns out people trust Keanu Reeves." Lorraine exhaled, her mind buzzing with possibilities. For the first time, she believed they could actually pull this off. The night of the event, the evening of the art show, arrived faster than Lorraine had anticipated. The once rundown building had been completely transformed. String lights illuminated the walls, creating a warm and inviting atmosphere. The paintings, sculptures, and photography pieces were displayed beautifully, each artist getting their own moment to shine. A small stage had been set up for live performances, where musicians and spoken-word poets would showcase their talents. Lorraine, dressed in an elegant yet understated outfit, stood at the entrance, welcoming guests. And there were many. Hollywood celebrities, art lovers, investors, and most importantly, the very people this project was meant for, struggling artists. Keanu arrived in his usual effortless style, dressed in his signature black suit, but without the Hollywood flashiness. He walked up to Lorraine, hands in his pockets. "You pulled it off," he said, smiling. Lorraine exhaled. "Honestly, I wasn't sure I could." Keanu chuckled. "Well, you did. And you did it the right way." Before Lorraine could respond, Maya, the artist she had spoken with weeks ago, approached. "You know," Maya said, crossing her arms, "I wasn't sure about you at first." Lorraine smirked. "I wasn't sure about me either." Maya grinned. "But you proved yourself. This whole thing, it's more than just an event. It's hope." Lorraine's heart swelled. She had spent years chasing money and prestige, believing those things defined success. But tonight, as she looked around the packed venue, saw young artists getting the recognition they deserved, and felt the energy of something truly meaningful, she realized something. This was success. Keanu's final words. As the event wrapped up, Lorraine found herself standing next to Keanu, watching as the artists packed up their work, their faces glowing with excitement. "You did good, Lorraine," Keanu said. Lorraine turned to him, curiosity flickering in her eyes. "Why did you give me a second chance?" Keanu shrugged. "Because I know what it's like to be underestimated, and I know that people can change if they really want to." Lorraine smiled, truly grateful. "Thank you, Keanu, for everything." Keanu gave her a small nod. "Don't thank me. Just keep doing the right thing." And with that, he walked away, blending effortlessly into the crowd. Lorraine stood there for a long moment, taking it all in. She had been given a second chance. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't going to waste it.